What's up, YouTube? We are going to look at Dark Phantasma, which was revealed just last night. Dark Phantasma should become part of our Lost Origin set in August. We'll see these cards not in Astral Radiance, not in Pokemon Go, but in August. So soon, but not quite soon enough for a lot of people, I think. We have some exciting cards to look at. We're going to go ahead and jump to the trainer cards for this set, so we can get a look at those first, and then we'll jump back to the Pokemon. So with that, let's look first at Arc Phone. So Arc Phone is an item card that says look at the top card of your deck, then return it to the top of your deck. You may choose one of your face-down prize cards and switch it with that card. This feels like a card that's built for Expanded. I'm sure somebody will find a cool use for it in Standard. I know some people have been talking about using it with Dream Ball to get some Stage 2s into play easily. Feels like a lot of work for Standard, for probably not enough payoff, especially considering the consistency of options we're losing after rotation, which is when this would probably become legal after rotation. Again, that's assuming we have a normal rotation this year, which would be like August or September. If we have a later rotation for some reason, or if they decide not to rotate, that could change. But if we have a normal rotation, like we probably will, then we're going to lose stuff like Drizzile. We won't have Shading Dealings. We won't have Crobat to draw into this. Makes this a little bit more difficult to pull off. So card could be interesting, and I'm sure there's some broken combination that'll work with it really nicely. But off the top of my head, I just don't see it being super great in Standard, at least not right away. Damage Pump. So Damage Pump says move up to 2 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to your other Pokemon in any way you like. So basically, take 2 damage counters and drop them somewhere else. Whether that's one Pokemon or two, 1-on-1 or 2-on-1. Move them around, put them somewhere else. It's kind of a pseudo heal, but we'll actually look at a card in particular that this is going to be really good for. It's a good card. It's definitely built for a deck in particular, but I can see it sneaking into other decks too. Mechanical Arm. This is a Pokemon tool. It says the Pokemon this tool is attached to can attack even if it is asleep or paralyzed. So if you have an attack, I know some Pokemon have these effects where they put themselves to sleep or they paralyze themselves or whatever, and then they do a decent amount of damage, but they're asleep. You have to hope that you flip out of it. With this particular tool, you wouldn't have to hope; you just still be able to attack, which is pretty cool. There is one or two. There are one or two Pokemon in here I think that might be able to make use of this. This is worth keeping an eye on. Calamity Case. This is a Pokemon tool also. This says, if the Pokemon V this card is attached to had full HP and is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, put 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So this is an interesting card. It's a I dare you card. I know some people have been talking about using this with Honchkrow V, slapping 4 of these down on a single Honchkrow with its ability. I feel like there are other tools you'd rather run on Honchkrow than this, but that's fine. And there's also a lot of ways to work around this too. There's like at least right now, obviously they can hit you with something like a Zigzagoon Ping, or they can hit you with a Quick Shooting. Quick Shooting will stick around after rotation, although it probably won't see nearly as much play since Shady Dealings is going away. But it is going to exist. It's something worth being aware of. Like with that in mind, the Calamity Case feels kind of bad, right? The effect would be strong, and maybe for a very vulnerable bench sitting V like Luminion, this is something you could consider putting on it. But I just not feeling it. This is again one of those cards that feels like it's an answer in search of a question. It doesn't quite work because of other things going on in the format. Volo. This was revealed, I think, just yesterday or the day before this was recorded. Is discard one of your bench Pokemon V and all attached cards. So when this is Pokemon V, that means regular basic Pokemon V, that means V Star, that means V Max, that means V Union. So all of those are considered Pokemon V. So if you have a damaged Pokemon V Max on your bench, you could play Volo, dump it, scrap that whole thing, and avoid your opponent having the option to take prize cards off of it, which is pretty nuts. And this also works against decks like Palkia and Suicune that need to have a lot of Pokemon on board in order to do their maximum damage. So they're going to be reliant on something like Echoing Horn to force your Pokemon back into play. Volo is pretty nasty. I think it's pretty good. It does feel a little niche, but I'm sure there will be a deck or even decks that find this fairly useful. Some way to ditch their Pokemon. Actually, single prizers might even find this useful as a one of, just to get rid of not a Crobat, but something like a Kricketune or an Articuno or a Luminion that's sitting on their bench. And they can draw into this, ditch it, get it out of the way, making sure that it's no longer a threat to their prize trades. Right now, now their opponent once again has to take 6 individual knockouts in order to get in order to win the game. So Volo is a very interesting card, but it is a bit situational. It won't go in every deck, but it will find a home in the right deck for certain. Iskin says draw 2 cards. If your active Pokemon has Hisuian in its name, draw 2 more. We've seen effects like this. I think the only one that saw play was what's it called? It was the one that did it for tag teams. It's not a good effect, and especially with the draw options we have, even after rotation, I don't see it seeing play. Arizu, search your deck for up to 3 evolution Pokemon that don't have a rule box, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. I like Arizu. I like it quite a bit, actually. Some of the decks that are really reliant on finding Pokemon need something like this, where they just need to find 2 or 3 different evolutions all at once in the same turn. So they can drop a Luminion, find a Arizu, play those down, and maybe next turn they can play Volo and get rid of that Luminion. Arizu is really good, especially if you can just draw into it. I don't think it's going to be something you want to have more than 1 or 2 copies of if you do run it. And Ball Search in most cases is probably going to be preferable because you're not going to be using your supporter for the turn. But Arizu's effect is pretty strong for these decks, right? That's let's say and they have a relevant single prize archetype after rotation. There aren't any at the moment. Maybe Arcanine. Maybe Arcanine, right? This could be your Hisuian Arcanine. This could be your Bibarel, and this could be maybe a backup Arcanine or even a backup Bibarel. So that's on 1 evolution or on 1 card, right? So pretty strong, but also pretty niche. And that's something I've noticed a lot about the supporters they've been revealing recently. A lot of them are fairly strong in specific situations. That does make me wonder if they are really pushing people toward using Luminion, because right now Luminion's seeing pretty limited play. When you compare it with something like Tapu Lele GX, Luminion's barely seeing any play at all. Tapu Lele was everywhere, 2 or 3 or even 4 copies in a lot of decks, and Luminion's like a one of in some decks. I think the most I've seen in a deck since it came out was 2, which is what the effect is super strong, but there are other options that people would prefer to play. So with Luminion out, we're seeing all these more niche supporters, and I think Luminion might see a little more play once Crobat rotates. Okay, Misfortune Sisters. So the Misfortune Sisters says, look at the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. You may discard any number of item cards you find there. Your opponent shuffles the cards you didn't discard back into their deck. That is terrifying. So there was a muck, I think it was, back in Team Up that had a similar effect to this. Yeah, here we are. So Alolan Mug, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you must the top 6 cards of your opponent's deck and discard any number of item cards you find there. Your opponent shuffles the other cards back in their deck. So same effect, not a supporter card on evolution, and 6 instead of 5, but the same general idea, right? This card was pretty good on its own, and then this is a supporter, so it's a supporter effect. So it's a little bit worse, a little bit smaller of a range. But I can definitely see this finding a home in something like Durant, where Durant really wants to get rid of your options as quickly as possible. It wants to burn your switches. It wants to kill your options, basically, right? Get rid of your escape ropes. This is perfect for that, right? You look at the top 5 cards, nuke all those options out of your deck, And not only have they milled several cards, they milled specific cards that could have been helpful for you. Pretty nice. Do I think it's going to see play in every deck? Absolutely not. This is a very specific niche card, like I was talking about earlier. But I do like it, and the artwork for this is great. I love I love these three women, and I like Candace. I love Ice type and Grass type Pokemon and their gym leaders. So it's nice seeing Candace's ancestor, I think is the right word here. Not right here. And then the final trainer card of the set is Lake Acuity. This Pokemon with water or fighting energy attached to them take 20 less damage from the opponent's Pokemon's attack. So if I am not mistaken, this Rough Seas. That's not Rough Seas. There's another one that's just like this. I can't remember it off the top of my head at the moment. Different energy types, but the same idea. Anyway, I like this effect. I'm trying to figure out what this goes in though. Origin form Palkia wouldn't hate it actually. Although using Temple of Sinnoh might be better depending on the matchup. Or even just Path to Peak, frankly. It's going to be interesting to see if this is relevant, because 20 damage is not a lot. But it may make it... If it can turn a 2-hit into a 3-hit knockout, that's good enough, probably. But you got to consider what is even doing that. And I can't think of anything relevant at the moment. Even for fighting types, like fighting types have maybe for Arcanine. I feel like that's really stretching. Because Arcanine is a single part, just gonna get knocked out anyway. You got Lucario, Machamp, but I don't think either of them is especially great. This is one of those cards that, again, is an answer in need of a question. But it's not bad. I think it's just one of those cases where there's probably something better the deck would rather run. Okay, with that in mind, let's go ahead and go to the top of the list with Pokemon. We are going to look at Paris. So Paris is Pokemon ready to evolve. It does blot and heal some damage from Pokemon that's going to get knocked out in one hit anyway, so it's basically bulk. Parasect. Ability Exhaustion Spore. When you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may use this ability. Both active Pokemon are now asleep and poisoned. So this is good for decks that need to have special conditions involved to do whatever it is. So this is your active. You can then get it poisoned and asleep and then switch it out and take advantage of that. That might be Hisuian Sneasler. After rotation, maybe it wants Parasect. Probably not, but yeah, it's an option at least. Probably just run the Weeping Bell instead of this, but it is an option. Also, this will help the Hisuian Electrode V, which we're going to look at right now. So for Noah Energy at all, has an attack called Aggrieved Bomb. This attack does 100 damage for each special condition on this Pokemon. If you're hitting Asleep and Poison, which you can do fairly easily with this Parasect, you're going to be doing 200 damage right off the bat. So, and then, let's see, you can burn yourself. Oh, yes, you can burn yourself. I'm trying to think of how it it is the Curry promo card that should be coming out in Astral Radiance. It's not going to be English. It's going to be in Japanese. All right, here. So heal 40 damage from the active Pokemon. That Pokemon is now burned. So if you can somehow get a damage counter on Electrode, and I think you actually can do that pretty easily. You can do that with Gape-Jaw Bog. So you drop Electrode while Gape-Jaw Bog is active. Put some damage on it. Hit it with Parasect Exhaustion Spore. So you have 2 on there. Plus hit it with Spicy Curry. That's 3 special conditions, and immediately you're doing 300 damage. So you're asleep though, so keep that in mind. So you're gonna need. I talked earlier about the Mechanical Arm. This is one of those Pokemon you're gonna use that for, right? Mechanical Arm allows you to attack if you're asleep or paralyzed. So Electrode would be asleep. with this effect. Where did everything go? Electrode would be asleep with this, so you would need the mechanical arm. So you would not have access to something like Choice Belt. But if you're doing 300 damage, it probably does not matter, right? You could be running, you'd probably be running Lucha, maybe? You, with having no attack cost on Hisuian Electrode, I don't know that you're going to even bother running Energy, which means you're probably not going to be using Greninja, so maybe you'd be running Halucha. That would get you up to 330 against VMAXs, which is enough to knock out almost all of them. And I think it is all of them after rotation, right? So here. We have tons of VMAXs, but I do not believe any of the ones past Eternatus have 340 HP. I think the only two that did were Eternatus and Snorlax. HP 340. Yeah. Caparaja also had 340. But all three of those are rotating. That's Eternatus, Caparaja, and Snorlax. So you would be knocking out all of the Pokemon VMAX that would be in the standard format after rotation. That's not bad. The only thing to be aware of is that we do lose Scoop Up Net with rotation, which means Parasect is basically just a dead card once it's been played down. It doesn't. It's just a bench sitter that has no use. Maybe that's maybe this is a case where you play 4 Volo and ditch your Parasects and then just clear them back to your hand later. Feels really bad, but I mean maybe that's what you need to make it work. And again, if you're doing 300 damage and you're knocking out VMAXs, you probably don't even need to recycle the effect. You just use it twice and take the KOs you need. It'd be interesting. This is one of those cards that struggles against single prizers, but probably does really great against everything else. Hisuian Electrode is definitely an interesting Pokemon, and I look forward to seeing it. I look forward to trying it out. How's that? I look forward to trying it out. Can't wait to test that for when we start testing after rotation. All right, Wurmple. So Wurmple has Prickly Sting and Squirmy Gather, which allows the Wurmple to search for a Wurmple, Silcoon, Cascoon, Beautifly, and Dustox. So any number of them, and put them in your hand. So you could be searching for a crap ton of Pokemon, thin the living hell out of your deck, and then shuffle your deck. I like it, but the question is, are any of those other Pokemon any good? And I think the answer is probably going to be no. Silcoon, Entangling Thread, flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon can't attack during your opponent's next turn. Ram for 30, so definitely an evolving Pokemon. Beautifly, Elated Draw. Once during your turn, you may draw cards from your hand until you have 6 cards in your hand. Sorry, draw cards from your deck until you have 6 cards in your hand. So this is basically a slightly better Barrel, but on a stage 2. The good thing is that you don't need Barrel because you would have Beautifly. You can convert Candy into it. The bad thing is it's a stage 2, which means it's going to be harder to get out anyway. And then its attack is terrible. Mega Drain 70 and Heal 30. So Beautifly is not a winner in that respect. All right, but let's look at Cascoon and Dustox. Cascoon says, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks if that damage is 60 or less. So a very, very limited protection there, but it is a protection. Rolling Tackle for 20. Again, this is an evolving Pokemon. Dustox, Abyss Powder. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused and poisoned. During Pokemon Checkup, put 8 damage counters on that Pokemon instead of 1. This reminds me of a Dragalge that was out ages ago. Dragalge. We are not in Japanese anymore. That one. This was a stage 1, and it did 10 instead of 8. And it saw no play and was terrible. And that was a stage 1. This is a stage 2. It requires more energy, same number of attachments theoretically, because it could just attach a double turbo, but it's doing less. So like, yeah, they're confused too, but it's still less damage, and they can retreat out of it. So it's bad. unfortunately. Elite Beautifly is maybe interesting for Gym Leader Challenge format if you're interested in playing that. Because of its draw effect, Grass can always use more draw. More draw, more search. But yeah, this is in standard. This is an Ion Seed play. Snover is bulk. Abomasnow is also bulk. Yone, Beach Party. Search your deck for up to 3 basic water type Pokemon and put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. So maybe a good pre-release card if you get it in pre-release. With some water Pokemon, play that down, grab some stuff. Not too bad. Probably not going to see any play in standard. Hisuian Basculin, surprise attack for 40. Flip a coin if Tails attack does nothing. Alright, Hisuian Basculin, Spirit Climb, 20 times damage. This attack does 20 damage for each basic energy card in your discard pile. Then shuffle those cards into your deck. Now, that is pretty interesting because it attacks for nothing. So you don't need to have any energy on it whatsoever to do that damage, which means you can go absolutely ham on your discarding and not have to worry about discarding the energy you need specifically for Basculin. And then, like, I don't know, it's pretty nifty. I'm not gonna lie. The big trick is going to be you shuffle all the energy back in, right? When this guy gets knocked out, you gotta pull that energy back out again. So this is like the Kyogre celebration. Discard top 5, attack does 50 damage. So you could theoretically play this with Kyogre. And then I know Volcarona is seeing play and expanded. But that also shuffles it back into the deck. I don't know. It's okay. There is a Stelix that could theoretically be paired with this to make it better, but that Stelix is going to get KO'd real quick. I will look at that Stelix when we get to it. Pikachu. Pikachu says, Pikadash. This Pokemon has any energy attached to it. It has no retreat cost. So that's both a blessing and a curse, I guess. If you really need to get energy into the discard pile, then that's bad, but otherwise it could be good. Ability tackle 50 damage with a coin. If Tails' attack does nothing, for that attack cost, that is absolutely awful. Raichu Thundershock 30, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. And Trump Spark for 100. If you've used your V-Star power, this attack does 120 more damage. So, 220 if you use it on a single prize. That's not awful for 2 attachments. Be 200 if you're using double turbo, which you'd have to be because after rotation you don't have twin energy anymore. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. 200 is not bad, and you do have access to choice belt still, so 230 with the double turbo on there. Let's look at Magnezone because maybe this is a potential partner for Magnezone. I kind of don't think so, but let's look anyway. Magnezone V. Pulling Magnetism. Switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon with their active Pokemon. This attack does 40 damage to the new active Pokemon. Splitting Beam. 90 damage. This attack does 30 damage to 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Alright, so you're probably doing 70 to the active with double turbo, and then 30-30, assuming they don't have Manaphy, which they probably do. I love the Pokemon. The art's not too bad, but And then Magnezone V Star for Lightning Double Colorless. Magnet Grip 180. Search your deck for up to 2 item cards, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So this is reminiscent of Togekiss V Max. Togekiss V Max lets you get any card though, so it's better. The flip side to that is that Magnezone is hitting for weakness, and it's hitting for weakness against some pretty important types. It's hitting against, well, not types, but decks. It's hitting against Palkia specifically, which is really important right now, because Palkia is a menace. So again, theoretically at least, this Magnezone could be interesting for that, because you could be hitting, you'd be hitting 160 base and then 320 with weakness, which is easily enough to KO the Palkia. question then becomes, is it good enough for literally any other to deal with literally any other archetype? And the answer is probably not. Like, what 2 item cards are you getting that are going to benefit you enough that Magnezone is going to matter? Are you going to be playing heavy disruption? Is this going to be crushing hammers? Is it going to be phantom waves? You know, and maybe that's okay. But feels like it's probably not. I feel like maybe we'll see something in Lost Abyss that will make this better. I just don't see it right now. This is a card that in a vacuum could be great, but especially right now with Urshifu running around, especially Rapid Strike Urshifu, this card feels really not great because I mean, for those of you who aren't familiar, we'll just look at it real quick. I feel like everybody's familiar, but we'll look at it. So, G-Max Rapid Flow, discard all of your energy from this Pokemon. This deck does 120 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon, and apply weakness and resistance for match Pokemon. So, if you have a Choice Belt and hit the active Magnezone, or if you have Telescopic Sight and hit the bench, although Telescopic Sight will rotate by the time this comes out, you're going to be hitting 150 on the bench, and then the active spot you're going to be hitting 300 because of weakness. So that's just an instant KO, right? And then even without that, if you're using Gale Thrust, that's a 150. That's a knockout too, and that's for single energy against this Magnezone. So it's just an instant KO, basically an instant loss, really, because that Urshifu is going to mow you over. And even if you pair this up with something like Arceus, Arceus also has a fighting type weakness. And what's rough too is you can play the Dunsparce, but and the Dunsparce removes the weakness for the fighting techniques that Arceus has and for all colorless Pokemon. But the problem is that Magnezone is not a colorless Pokemon, so it will still have that weakness. So then you have to either entirely rely on your Arceus for that matchup, which is already rough because then they can just knock out the Dunsparce and go through you anyway. Well, I mean, honestly, at that point, why even run the Magnezone? It's just it's rough. You could run Magnezone with Flaffy and maybe some single prize attackers to make it so that it's not as in bad of shape. But at that point, you have other options for attackers like Boltund. And they're also colorless attack. It's I don't know. Magnezone is not a deck that you just slap in with something else. This is gonna be something that you have to actually sit down and go, okay, what can work with this? Because this isn't a card that is just going to be a slap it with Arceus and be done kind of deck. It needs more than a simple pairing with Arceus. I love Magnezone though. Look at that. That art's good. All right. Rotom. Overhaul. Shuffle your hand to your deck and then draw 6 cards. This will be great in pre-release. If you pull this in pre-release, absolutely throw it in your pre-release deck. Mach Bolt, 80 damage. Fine. Clefairy, Moonwatching, pardon. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may search your deck for a psychic energy and attach it to each of your benched Clefairy. Then shuffle your deck. That's wording off is a little off there. It's if it's in the active spot, you may search for an energy for each of your benched Clefairy and attach it to them. So that could be 3 energies basically per attachment. And if you have a switch or an escape rope, that's extra energy. You could be getting, in theory, 3 times 4, so that's 12 energy in play with this Moonwatching ability each turn. Plus a manual attachment, so 13. You probably aren't even running that many in your deck. Maybe you'll run a lot, but probably not quite that much. So that's pretty good. I know some people have been talking about pairing this up with the Mewtwo from Pokemon Go. Do that real quick. We talked about this briefly when we were looking at Pokemon Go. To discard up to 3 psychic energy from your Pokemon's attack does 90 damage for each card you discarded this way. So you could be pairing this up with that, get all those energies in play, and then start nuking them all up with that the Mewtwo V-Star. So you're getting 270 off of that. Or you could just attack with Clefairy. Wonderstorm, 20 times damage. This attack does 20 damage for each psychic energy attached to your Pokemon. So if you have 12 energy in play, that's 240. Add a choice spell to that, 270. That's not too bad. Yeah, the attack cost is maybe a little high, but you're flooding your board with energy anyway, so what do you care? You're going to get the energy in play. And then you have Clefable. Clefable says, has an ability called Soul Protection. All of your Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks. When your Pokemon's Dragon-type Pokemon, you can't apply more than one Soul Protection at a time. So super, super niche. Honestly, it's bulk. It's not relevant. Ghastly, Furtive Drop, put a damage counter. Haunter, Curse Drop, put 3. And Gengar. Here's a great guy right here. Gengar is a buddy of ours, and we're going to love to see him. He will see play for certain. Creeping Back is an ability that says once during your turn, you may put this card from your discard pile onto your bench if you do put 3 damage counters on this Pokemon. So your effective HP is 90, but you do not need the Haunter or the Ghastly to get this Pokemon into play. You can discard it with a Ultra Ball or any other effect, maybe research, and then just pull it back into play immediately and have it ready to go. Yes, you're down 30 HP, but you have 120 to start off with, so you're going to get knocked out by basically everything anyway. And you're weak to darkness, which also is pretty relevant because the Mew hate still is pretty strong, so there's darkness everywhere. You're going to get knocked out, basically. It doesn't matter one way, with or without that 30 damage. Shrieking Circle, put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon for each of their bench Pokemon. So you're going to be capping out at 100, basically. It's 10 damage counters, so 5 total, or 5 bench Pokemon times 2, 10. Not terrible for a single energy. Could be relevant if they're really hurt and you need to get damage out fast, or if you just need to get some damage in play. But I think this is more, pardon me, Gengar is more of a utility Pokemon in this instance. And I think that's going to be played with a Pokemon we're going to see in a little bit, with the Hisuian and Zoroark V-Star. We'll look at that in a little bit. Mr. Mime, pound 20, Trick Slap. 90 damage, play rock, paper, scissors with your opponent. If you win, prevent all effective attacks, including damage on this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. So basically, you, for 3 energy, do 90 damage, which is nothing. And then if you win rock, paper, scissors, you could theoretically prevent anything from happening to Mr. Mime. The problem is, and I'm sorry to say this, Mew does not care. It has Max Miracle. It can just cut right through that barrier effect and still knock out Mr. Mime. Duraludon has an effect, or an attack that's the same, where it also cuts right through, as does Single Strike Urshifu VMAX. It can just bulldoze this thing, even with that immunity effect on them, which means Mr. Mime is just not good. Unfortunately. I mean, 9 damage output is not good anyway, but at least immunity would have made it okay. And 90 HP means it's low ball searchable, so this will be one of those cards that somebody like Little Dark Fury will make work on a meme game or two, and then it'll see play for a couple weeks on PTCGO or PTCGL if that ever comes out, and that's it. That'd be good. Misdreavus, Confuse Ray, 10 damage, flip a coin. If heads, the opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. Miss Magius, ability, Grudging Incantation. If this Pokemon is at full HP and is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, place 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Ominous Singing, place 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon. Like the best you could possibly do that I can think of off the top of my head is you play this together with Gengar and with that tool earlier. Oh, you can't even play with that tool because the tool has to be Pokemon V. That doesn't even work. Yeah, it's just bad. It has to be full HP, so again, they could just ping it and yeah, it's. And then 2 damage counters on each Pokemon. Back like 3 or 4 years ago, before tag teams inflated the HP of the Pokemon trading card game, this could have been great. 2 damage counters now is probably just not enough. The good thing is, though, it is placing damage counters and not damage, which means that Manaphy doesn't matter. I mean, it's going to go right through Manaphy. The bad thing is it's only 2 damage counters. So ultimately, it's going to take 4 attacks with Miss Magius to knock out that Manaphy in the first place. By that point, they've KO'd all your Miss Magius or any access you had to the ones you had. So it's just not good. It's one of those cards you want to like, but ultimately it's just it's not good. All right, let's move on. Radiant Gardevoir. So ability Devotion Veil. Your Pokemon take 20 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon V attack. Opponent's Pokemon V's attacks. So this could be good in Stewie and Gudra. We'll look at it a little bit. Then it has an attack for Psychic Double Colors. Psychic. 70 plus damage. This attack does 20 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So this is very reliant on your Pokemon, your opponent's Pokemon rather, having a lot of energy on it. You're probably not ever going to be attacking with this Gardevoir unless you have just the right, absolute right moment for it and have a way to get the energy on there. Reminds me of like people taking games with Jirachi back in team up formats, using Slap to take a KO, but that's going to be rare rather than common. It's not going to be something you're doing left, right, and center. Radiant Gardevoir is interesting. I do think a lot of decks would pretty much just prefer to run Radiant Greninja. That draw 2 is extremely potent and very helpful for decks that need the draw. So Gardevoir is good, but is probably looking for a home. And when we look at Gudra, we'll see if maybe, and I think this is going to be the case, we'll see if even Greninja there is probably just the better option. As you've got to keep in mind, with Radiant Pokemon, you can only have one of any Radiant Pokemon in your deck. So if you have Radiant Gardevoir, you cannot play Radiant Greninja. And if you have Radiant Greninja, you cannot play Radiant Gardevoir. There can only be one Radiant Pokemon total in your deck. Think of them as a spec Pokemon, basically. They're strong, but you can have one. Yeah. Radiant Greninja is really good in case you haven't guessed. Chimecho, Dreamy Tone during your opponent's next turn. If they attach an energy card from their hand to the defending Pokemon, that Pokemon will be asleep. So, I mean, not good. Hang down 30 is bulk. It's just not good. It's like, is there anything? No, there's nothing. Doing Zorua, collect, draw a card, mumble 10 damage. This is a great card for pre-release formats. You get a nice little draw effect in there for no attachment. Hisuian Zoroark, Hex of Ruin again for no energy cost. At the end of your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon is knocked out. So this could be good in pre-release formats where switching options are pretty limited. If you can get the Zorua and the Zoroark out and evolve it and take the attack in, then they probably will have to retreat, which burns their energy and is not great for them anyway. Probably don't have a ready attack in pre-release because there's very little acceleration. It might not be bad in pre-release. In standard, however, there's just way too many ways to get around that kind of effect. Those types of effects have never been very good. There was a Absol in Guardians Rising, I believe it was. Doom News, yeah, it had a very similar effect. This one kicked all the energy back. Obviously, this one doesn't because there's no energy for the requirement anyway. But ultimately, it's the same kind of effect, right? And that Absol did not work. They can just retreat out of it, right? And in that format, there was Guzma too, which made it even harder. But there's Switch, there's Escape Rope. There's probably going to be a new retreat tool. Right now, we have Air Balloon. Air Balloon is, at least as of now, rotating. There's too many ways to get around Hex of Ruin. And like I said, there's also just manually retreating. So if they can discard an energy or two to retreat, they will. And then you don't get the prize cards. The flip side of that is, Zoroark is it's a single prizer. So if you're slapping a Hex of Ruin against a VMAX and sticking it into the active spot, it sticks. That's good. But that if is really big. Enamorous V, Guardian of Love. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, prevent all effects of your opponent's abilities done to your Pokemon in play with any psychic energy attached, except any Enamorous V. It's not going to help Enamorous, but any other Pokemon with psychic energy attached. But not even necessarily psychic Pokemon, just any Pokemon with psychic energy attached to it. So whether that's Aurora, basic psychic, and expanded, that could be Rainbow or Prism energy, whatever. It has an immunity to those effects. So that means it would be immune to. It has to be active spot. So it would be immune. active spot sounds terrible, actually. Quick shooting basically is the only thing you're going to be preventing yourself from getting hit by. It's like if it would work from the bench, then something like Galarian Wheezing would not work, and that would be great. Uh, but it has to be an active spot to work, which is not great. And then it's being hit for metal, which isn't super relevant at the moment. But at least it's a good, decent weakness to have. All right. Blooming Tail, 100 damage, attach 2 basic energy cards from the discard pile to your Pokemon in any way you like. So the acceleration is not too bad. 2 attachments, either 80 or 100 damage, or 110 or 130. 110 or 130 with a Choice Belt. It's just not good. Really, really not good. I wish it were, but it's not. That ability is really niche. Unless we see some crazy good ability coming through soon, it's just not enough for it to matter. Hisuian Growl Singe, your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned. I really love that attack. It's great for a no energy cost attack. That means if you're stuck with this thing in the active spot and you're just waiting for it to get knocked out, you could at least get 20 damage or maybe even more on your opponent's active. That could be relevant later. Pretty good. Hisuian Arcanine. Omnidirectional Destruction. This is the spiritual successor to Gramble from Lost Thunder. So if you have no cards in your hand, this deck does 150 more damage. The Gramble's base damage was 30, I believe, which is better. The difference here is actually pretty staggering, though. And this is something that you may not notice right off the bat if you're just not thinking about it. Gramble required a fairy energy to attack, so 30 plus 130 is 160. Great, fine. But Arcanine does not require energy at all to attack, which means you can run other things and not have to be worried about finding your Raihan to attach your energy to get it ready to attack so that you can actually have it ready to go. It doesn't matter. It won't matter because you're not attaching energy in the first place, so which means that's, I think Gramble ran 7 energies. That's 7 extra slots theoretically you could be using in your deck in some other way. That could be trekking shoes. Maybe that's searching for your Ultra Balls to discard 2 cards in your hand, or grabbing some card that you know you can burn after using trekking shoes. Whatever that may be, you can now say, yes, this is for sure going to work because you have 7 extra slots. I would like to see some sort of Diantha. Gramble did have Diantha. Diantha was really strong for Gramble. You can only play this card if one of your fairy type Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Put 2 cards from your discard pile into your hand. So with Hisuian Arcanine, maybe that's if one of your fighting type Pokemon were knocked out during your last turn. Put 2 in your hand. That would be great. It gives us that would really give this a good effect. As it stands now, we don't have any sort of Diantha for Arcanine, so we have to find other ways to find what we want to get it back, basically. We are losing Ordinary Rod to rotation, so the only real form of recovery for Pokemon at the moment is pretty much Clara. And I think Team Yell something? Team Yell, not Grunt. We just got it, though. Here, that's the one. Team Yell's Cheer. So bring in any combination of Pokemon support cards. That may be what you play in there. Maybe it's like a 1 of or 2 of. But supporter cards are rough in decks like this because they are very easy to get stuck in your hand. They're a lot harder to burn than item cards. So, yeah. This is a deck that I look forward to playing, if only at local events like just weekly Pokemon League or maybe League Challenges. This card does have a lot going for it, though. It has options. It has lots of ways to draw through its deck and burn its hands. It is losing Galarian Meowth from Rebel Clash, which discards 2 cards from your hand. It's also losing a Rangaroo, so you lose that too. You don't have the ability to pop cards from your hand. but I think it still has quite a lot. And I think it still can work. And again, with having no energy for its attack cost, it's more likely to work than even Gramble did. And Gramble did see success. This card, I suspect, will see success. And another thing to point out about this Arcanine too is it's hitting Arceus for weakness. It's hitting Magnezone for weakness. It's hitting irrelevant weakness. It is fighting type. And it is a single price fighting type, which means it is not going to have a problem with the price trade against Arceus. Now, yes, if they have Dunsparce, you're going to have to deal with that some way. But if they don't have Dunsparce, or if you've already knocked out the Dunsparce, have that. That 160 damage is going to hurt. That 190 with Choice Belt is really going to hurt. I look forward to seeing this card see some play. If only because Granbull was such a fun deck. Machop, Punch for 20, Machop, Strength, Seismic Toss, Machamp, Blacksmith's Muscle. If your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, this Pokemon gets 150 extra HP. This becomes a 300 HP Pokemon as a single prizer. that's a lot of HP. But again, they have to have 3 or fewer prize cards remaining. And then its attack, Strong Arm Lariat, 100 plus damage. You may choose to do 100 more damage. If you do during your next turn, this Pokemon cannot attack. So you can do 200 damage, do 30 with Choice Belt. It's not bad, but it is a stage 2. So I feel like a broken record, and I'm sure everybody else that does argue like this feels like a broken record. Stage 2s are just not in a good spot right now. They really haven't been since basically Lost Thunder. There's not enough consistency for stage 2s at the moment, especially with cards like Evolution Incense rotating. And then there's just not enough incentive to evolve that much in the first place. Just going from B to V star is good enough the majority of the time. So trying to get a stage 2 out and then take advantage of it and then have it at the right time, right? Because ideally you wouldn't want to put Machamp out earlier. You don't want to have Machamp out with only 150 HP. But then what are you attacking with? Are you attacking with a Surfetched or a Galarian Zapdos maybe? Maybe, but is that going to be good enough for a deck? Probably not. I will say though, and I mentioned Gym Leader Challenge format already in this set review. This would be great in Gym Leader Challenge, right? Put this out later on in the game, get your Machop or your Machop Machoke out. Evolve this when your opponent takes their fourth or their third prize card rather. They're down to 3. This would be quite a demon to deal with in GLC. In fact, I wouldn't be willing. I would be willing to bet against Band actually. It's pretty strong. Like how do you deal with this in that format? Unless you're a psychic type deck, I don't know that you can. Because that's 300. That's 300 health. That's a lot. Pseudo Widow. Joust 20 before doing damage. Discard all tool cards from your opponent's active Pokemon. And impound during your opponent's next turn. The defending Pokemon can't retreat. It's bulk. Gligger, Scissor Wind. Scissor Whirlwind. 10 times damage for 4 coins. Attack does 10 damage for each head. Not good. Glisker, Hurricane Shot. 50 damage, or 50 times, pardon again. So 4 coins, just like the Scissor. Scissors Whirlwind. This attack does 50 damage for each heads. If you flip 2 heads or more, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. So theoretically, up to 200 damage, 230 with Choice Belt for 2 energy. You can get fairly easily between Raihan and the pick, and you can get there. 230 with Choice Belt. I feel like it has almost no HP with 120. It's probably not good enough, honestly. Gallade V, Rising Sword, 20 plus damage. This attack does an additional 50 damage for each prize card you've already taken. So if you've taken 4 prize cards, that would be 220 damage plus Choice Belt, 250. It's not bad, not for the attack cost at least. Buster Swing 130, damage is not affected by resistance. This could maybe see play as like a one of tech attacker. but I think a lot of decks might just prefer the Galarian Zapdos. We were very, very much anticipating a Glade V-Star. There was not one in this set. That doesn't mean there won't be one, but it does not look like there's going to be. There wasn't one in this set, and that's where Glade V came out. So Glade V seems okay. In a vacuum, it's probably even good, but I feel like there's just better stuff still. Like, I mean, the Galarian Zapdos is just so good. I guess the big benefit for Glade is that the attack cost is lower, possibly, at least under Path of the Peak. If Path of the Peak isn't in play, then Zapdos is probably going to be fine anyway. Yeah, I just don't know why you'd play Glade. Not over Zapdos, at least. It's got great art. Good art, but it's just outclassed. It's one of those things where in a vacuum it's great, but it's not in a vacuum. Zubat 10 damage, Golbat 30, Crobat Poison Fang 50 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned, and for 3 colorless energy, Critical Bite. This attack does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, so this is any Pokemon in play. If your opponent's Pokemon was knocked out by damage from this attack, take 2 more prize cards. Okay. It's a stage 2, and it's only 30 damage. But if you can pull it off, it'd be pretty interesting. The 3 attack cost does make me think it's probably never going to see any play. Unless we get something like triple acceleration energy back into standard, which I doubt we'll ever see. At least not anytime soon. Triple acceleration would have made this work fairly well. Because you just attach the energy, do the KO, and then take your 3 prize cards. Or 4, whatever it ends up being. But because it's a stage 2 and because of the high attack cost, I don't know that you're going to pull this off. And if you do, cool, but you're not going to be doing it consistently. Nah. Murkrow, Flock, search your deck for I can't talk. Search your deck for up to 2 Murkrow and put them onto your bench. I need to fix that. And then shuffle your deck, and then peck 10 damage. Honchkrow, draw 3 cards with triple draw, or Heartless Wings. 120 damage, you may switch this Pokemon with one of your bench Murkrow. Heartless Wings indeed. It's like, hey, Murkrow, come take the hit for me. Not good, honestly. You're doing 150 max with choice belts. Yeah, it's just not good enough. Just enough for that attack cost. Radiant Hisuian Sneasler. Again, you can have more than one Radiant Pokemon in your deck. Ability Poison Peak. Put 2 more damage counters on your opponent's poisoned Pokemon during Pokemon checkup. So, if the base poison pick is 1, so it'd be 3. If you paired this up with Dustox, it would be 10 instead. Because it'd be, instead of 8, it would be 10 with +2. So it'd be basically on Algae's level. And then Poison Jab, 90 damage. Your opponent's next Pokemon is not poisoned. So it's vaguely interesting. It's super freaking niche. And again, a lot of decks that would run a Radiant Pokemon are probably going to try to prefer Greninja or Hawlucha, depending on their matchups. And I think most of them are just going to want Greninja, unless they're running basically all or mostly special energy cards. It's not awful, but it's super super niche. There's not really any deck that could take good advantage of it. So it's not. It's probably not going to see a lot of play, if any. At least not with what card we've seen so far. Spiritomb ability Cursed Message. If this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, search your deck for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So I think there's a Gengar recently that had a similar effect. I think it was search 2 instead of 1, but the idea is the same. All right, if it's knocked out, search for a card, put it in your hand. This is sort of like a Raihan, but without the energy attachment. Just get a card if it's knocked out. And then Soul Chain for double darkness, 10 plus damage. This attack does 60 more damage for each Spiritomb in your discard pile. So Double Darkness isn't terrible to hit because you can manually attach in Dark Patch or manually attach in Raihan. So you can get there fairly easily probably. The bigger concern is the Spiritombs. So you have to have 3 Spiritomb in your discard pile to do decent damage, right? Because that's 60 times 3 is 180, plus 10 base is 190, plus Choice Belt is 220. That's honestly even then still too low. Cursed Message does make it better though because you can search for the Dark Patch, you can search for the Raihan. If you prize one, you're gonna have to run Hisuian level or Hisuian Heavy Ball to pull them out. I hope you only prize the one. Uh, I don't think it's gonna work, honestly. Unfortunately. And the rough thing is too, even if we get something like a Spiritomb V and Spiritomb V Star, it won't get any better because the attack specifically says each Spiritomb in your discard pile, and Spiritomb V and Spiritomb V Star would not be called Spiritomb. So there would be no additional way of boosting that damage for Spiritomb, which kind of just makes it rough. Like Soul Chain is a really cool attack, but I feel like either the multiplier needed to be higher. Well, really, just the multiplier needed to be higher. Maybe 70 would be fine. Right, 210, 220 before the choice belt. I don't even know if that's really enough. 80 maybe. I don't know. It's just not quite there. It is an interesting card. I like the card's design. I like the ability. I like the attack. I just don't feel like it's quite enough with what we currently have in standard. Krogunk, Corkscrew Punch for 30, Toxic Croak, Pierce 30, Upward Arrival, 120 damage. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 50 less damage from attacks after applying weakness resistance. So if your opponent is somehow not hitting 170, they should just concede to you. Because they are running some jank. This card is not good. The art is great, but the card is not good. I'm sorry, but 120 damage is nothing, and then the minus 50 is not good enough. They can almost any deck worth its salt can do 170 without problems. So not worth it. All right, Radiant Stelix. I mentioned this earlier with the Bascu Legion. Radiant Stelix says Energy Beam, 20 damage, attach up to 2 metal energy cards from your discard pile to this Pokemon. So you're going to basically power up its secondary attack. And its secondary attack is a finishing rend, 60 plus damage. Discard cards from the top of your deck until you have 1 card left in your deck. So does 30 more damage for each card you discarded in this way. So let's say, and this is entirely theoretical because it's never going to happen unless your opponent literally lets you just do it. Let's say you have 3 cards in your deck that are not energy. You have the Stelix, and you have a 1/1 line of Bascu Legion, and you have all of your Bascu Legions in play. Your Bascu Legion and Bascu Legion, they're already ready to go. So you have nothing but energy in your deck, right? So 57 minus your starting hand, minus your prize cards, minus 2 draws. You have probably about 42 cards in your deck, and they would all be energy. So that would be 41 cards that would discard, right? You would be doing 30 more damage for each one. So you'd be doing 1,230 damage plus the 60 base. So you could do 1,290, which is crazy. You're not going to do that. But theoretically, you could. Theoretically. And then you flip it back in with Bascu Legion and do the damage basically all over again. It's nuts. It's severely overkill. I don't sleep. It's just, yeah. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting card, and with us having Metal Saucer currently in the standard format, it could maybe work a little bit better. You get the secondary attack right off the bat, but then if your opponent runs Durant and hits you before you can attack back, you just lose. So this is going to be a great component to a meme deck. How's that? It'll definitely be part of a meme deck. And it'll be a fun meme deck. It might even be good and expanded, where you have stuff like Volcorona already seeing some decent success. But in standard, it might be a bit too much to ask for finishing run, especially. It might just be a little bit too much. Bronzor spinning attack for 10, Bronzong, Ram, and Gravitational Drop. Gravitational Drop does 40 plus damage. Attack does 40 more damage for each colorless and your opponent's active Pokemon through retreat cost. So this is basically a bad version of Leafeon. Leafeon, that's Leafeon VMAX. It's not very good. Gumi, Tackle and Melt, Hisuian Sliggoo, Rigidify. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 50 less damage from attacks after applying weakness and resistance. And then Gentle Slap for 40. Hisuian Gudra, so Steel Shelter. Ignore all damage done by your opponent's Pokemon V's attack to your basic Pokemon that have any metal energy attached. Okay. And then 140 with heavy impact. I don't know why you'd play that. It's a stage 2. And then you're protecting basics only. And then they have to have a metal energy attached. That's really specific. Hisuian Gudra V, top lane goo, 60 damage. Your opponent switches their active Pokemon with one of their bench Pokemon, so they choose. She'll roll out 140 damage during your opponent's next turn. This Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks. Not great considering it's water, metal, colorless. And then Hisuian Gudra V Star, or water, metal, colorless, iron rollout, 200. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 80 less damage from attacks. That is nuts. That is some serious sponginess. So Hisuian Gudra V-Star has 270 HP, and with this sponging effect, effectively has 350, which is nuts. That would be absolutely insane to try to knock it out. And then you can heal it off with all sorts of effects too. So stuff like Cheryl and Cheryl. Yep, Cheryl. So yeah, you play Cheryl, heal it off. Although getting rid of that energy could be pretty rough. You could Melanie. That attack cost is awkward. You'd probably have to run. Is it Jirachi? Yeah, you'd have to use Bridge with Jirachi to basically cycle the energy from Gudra to Gudra. Because you can't. I mean, you could use EXP share in place of choice belts, but I think you'd rather just do the 230. Knock out the stuff that has like 220, 210 HP. It's such an awkward attack cost. This will be one of those decks that's gonna be really fun if we can make it work. But making it work might be a challenge because of that attack cost. Because you can't Metal Saucer to it, even if this existed in a world with Metal Saucer. Metal Saucer only attaches to benched Metal type Pokemon, and Gudra is not going to be a Metal type Pokemon, obviously. You could Melanie attach. That gets 2 of them, but then there's that third energy to worry about. You could run Frostlass and get the extra energy on there that way. I don't know. That's still not great because, again, that's going to be after rotation without Scoop Up Net. Gudra will, if Gudra can be made to work, if this attack cost can be dealt with in some way, this card will be great. And it will see play, and I will play the heck out of it because I love playing Stall. Stall is one of my favorite types of decks to play. But they're just never good on standard, and even in expanded, they have issues. Snorlax obviously is very good in expanded, but that's a very different kind of deck than what I'm after. But something like this is, the high HP, high damage sponging kind of effect is good. I like it. It's just that attack cost is making me worry a bit. And then its ability is Moisture Star. You may use this ability once during your turn. Heal all damage from this Pokemon. So not only do you have access to Cheryl, you don't even have to Cheryl the first time. You can just use this. So you would preserve your energy, heal off all the damage, and then attack again and be done with it, right? Because this is an ability, so it doesn't have your turn. It's good. It really is. It's going to be a matter of getting it powered up and ready. That Jirachi might be pretty important to the deck. Oh, basic Pokemon V is knocked out. So that doesn't even work. Hooray for reading cards. Yeah, when one of your basic Pokemon V's, that Jirachi's useless. You have to run an EXP share to do that. Ugh, that makes me even more worried. Where there's a will, there's a way. We're going to find a way. Snorlax, Tranquil Blubber. Prevent all effects from your opponent's Pokemon done to this Pokemon. Damage is not an effect. So, no special conditions, no poison, burn, paralysis. No damage counters from stuff like Dragapult VMAX's attacks. Although, again, Dragapult VMAX should rotate before we see this. And then Heavy Snoring, 180 damage. This Pokemon is now asleep. During Pokemon Checkup, flip 2 coins instead of 1. If either of them is tails, this Pokemon is still asleep. So you could run Mechanical Arms with this particular Pokemon. So Mechanical Arms, again, just a quick reminder, allows you to attack if you're asleep or paralyzed. So if Snorlax is asleep, it wouldn't matter. Snorlax is a colorless Pokemon with 150 HP. As a basic, that's not too bad. The sleeping effect doesn't matter, again, if you have the Mechanical Arms attached. And then you would mind that too much because you're doing 180. Powering us up actually shouldn't be that bad, right? Because you have triple colorless. That could be a Gardenia's Vitality, right? Attachment, 2 attachments with Gardenia's Vitality, and you can do that in 1 turn, assuming you're running enough energy and hit them when you need them. And then 150 HP isn't too bad. Probably going to get knocked out in 1 turn anyway, but you're doing 180, so you're knocking out stuff like, like the fish, right? This card. So you're knocking out Luminion in 1 hit, no problem. I think even Kricketune goes, right? Didn't see play. Yeah, you're knocking out Kricketune also. So both of those go down in 1 hit. Snorlax, and you're a single prizer, so trade's not too bad. 180 is not horrible. It's not bad. And in a deck that already runs Energy Acceleration, maybe something like Flaffy, this would be even better. You just throw some energy on it after slapping it on the bench, and then throw it to the active spot. Knock out whatever's in front of you, and then wait for it to get knocked out to screw the prize trade. Apom, Pranking Tail. Look at the top card of your opponent's deck. You may return that card to the top or shuffle it into their deck and scratch 10 damage. Pranking Tail is interesting, but it's like a really bad version of Chip Ice Axe. Like if they've put a card on top of their deck and you really need them to not draw into it, if you're playing Control, for example, then Apom is an option. Maybe you don't want them to draw their switch, you don't want them to draw their counter stadium, then Pranking Tail is your guy. Ambipom, grab all you want. Flip a coin until you get tails. For each head, subject for a card and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your deck and knock off, discard a random card from your opponent's hand. So Ambipom, I mean, maybe in Control, but I think the Apom's better. It's super. The Apom is already really niche, and the Ambipom is just kind of too much to ask for. All right, now for the star of the set and the last 2 cards in this review, or first impression. It's more of a first impression review because obviously I haven't had my hands on these cards just yet. I think once I do, I'll have a better feel for some of them. Maybe I'll change my mind on a few of them, like I did with Lilligant for this last set. Hisuian Zoroark V, Hollow Swap. 30 damage. You may switch this Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. So get it out of the active Pokemon for no energy. That's really good. Shadow Cyclone for 3 colors. Move 1 energy from this Pokemon to one of your bench Pokemon, so try and preserve energy. That's always good. Hisuian Zoroark V-Star. Baleful Curse. 50 times damage. This attack does 50 damage for each of your Pokemon that has any damage countered on it. That is terrifying. You play this in conjunction with Gapejaw Bog, which places 2 damage counters on a Pokemon when you play it down. That puts 2 damage counters on them immediately. You have access to Damage Pump, which puts 2 damage. It allows you to move 2 damage counters from wherever you need them to somewhere else. So let's say you have, I don't know, a Gengar that you've played from your discard pile that has 3 energy on it, or 3 damage counters on it. You can take 2 of those damage counters, drop one on one of your bench Pokemon, drop another one on a different bench Pokemon, and now you have 3 different Pokemon that have those damage counters on them. So that's already 150 damage. And keep in mind too, this says for each of your Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. That doesn't mean necessarily your bench Pokemon. You are still counting the active Zoroark. So you're hitting 300 damage very easily, right? 50 times 6. So you're hitting 300 damage plus Choice Belt, 330. Whoa. Very, very strong effect. Even with using double turbo on here, that's still really good damage. With the double turbo and the Choice Belt, you're hitting 310, which is exactly enough to knock out me V-Star, V Max. Oh, I hope it never gets a V-Star. Enough to knock out me V Max, which is perfect. It's exactly what it needs to do. And then ability Phantom Star, you may use this ability during your turn, discard your hand, and draw 7 cards. So you have an inbuilt Professor's Research for extra consistency. So if you need a card, maybe you're looking for a Hisuian Zoroark V to take the place of this one next turn, that's great. Now, I did mention earlier about that Hisuian Arcanine hitting Arceus for weakness. This also would hit Arcanine would also hit the Zoroark for weakness. You do need to run the Dunsparce and cross your fingers that it stays alive to keep your Zoroarks out. But this is a good card. This will see play. This is going to be probably the deck to play, if not one of the big decks to play from our Lost Origin set in August. We have yet to see Giratina. We have yet to see Zeraora or Deoxys. They could be great too. But for certain, this Zoroark is amazing and it will see play. With that, guys, hope you got a little bit out of this little first impressions and hope you enjoyed kind of hearing what I thought about the set. I'm looking forward to some of these cards. I really love the Zoroark. I really love the damage pump. I like Volo. I like Arizu. Like there's good stuff in this set. Is this Starbirth? No, it's not. It's not quite that good. But it's a good set. It's good. It's gonna be very interesting. I'm very much looking forward to Lost Abyss, which is Japan's July set. That will be paired with this set to become our August set. So look forward to that in the future. And again, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please like, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.